Throwing those wrists up, got those people hot. Throwing those wrists up, got those people hot. My God. I knew it was going to be like that. Good, bad, or ugly. You knew what the reactions were going to be. You knew what the reactions were going to be. But before I get into Shedeur's performance, I would like this opportunity to talk to my Caucasian brethren out there. If you don't mind, if you don't mind giving me a second to talk to my Caucasian brethren um, out in these social media streets, because I understand that my Caucasian brethren probably don't really understand, why people feel so strongly about Shedeur Sanders. It's probably a little bit confusing to them of why is there such a strong reaction for a fifth round draft pick. So I'm going to try to explain it to you in the simplest terms that I can. See, as Black people, we're often told or instructed or advised to tone it down, to be humble, to be seen, not heard. And if we do express ourselves, show confidence, show strength, show belief, speak up against things that we think are wrong, we're often called divas. We're often called selfish. We're often called sensationalist and a lot of other names that are a little bit more offensive. This is not something that happens to white people. No one ever says anything about Rob Gronkowski being the way he is. Rob Gronkowski right now, at whatever age he is, could go to a frat house and be dancing in a towel and no one would say anything. It's a societal thing. Black people are told, tone it down. You're too loud. Why are you speaking? Why do you have, just having belief in yourself is seen as a negative. So in sports, when we see the double standards, oftentimes it makes us want to root for that individual, even if we're not a fan of the team, fan of the father, the fan of anything. It's ingrained in us because we see it and we know what it is. Because I studied intensively for the draft last year, the quarterbacks, and I watched a lot of Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. And I watched a lot of Shedeur Sanders at Colorado. And I didn't just watch the passes or the interceptions or the touchdowns. I watched the interactions. And I'll tell you something. Jackson Dart and Shedeur Sanders are not that different. Even in the NFL, that moxie or whatever you want to call it, enthusiasm, that swagger, that confidence that Jackson Dart has, that's seen as a positive for him. He brought positive energy to the Giants. Him and Scatterbook can do their little poses and everything. And those are all seen as positives. Those same things can be done by Shedeur Sanders and they're seen as negatives. It literally cost him probably 3 rounds in the draft. Anybody that did a fair evaluation of last year's draft would have, at worst, had him the 3rd best quarterback in that draft. At worst. Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders. I had Shedeur and Jackson Dart right around the same the same thing, around late first, early second. And the interesting thing about Shedeur, and I've covered Shedeur since he was in high school, he's a pretty mild-mannered kid. He's a pretty mild-mannered kid with just a lot of self-confidence. And you get a lot of self-confidence when you're Black, when you have parents that allow you to have that self-confidence. Oftentimes, young Black children are institutionalized to not have confidence. It starts at an early age. It starts in elementary school, where the smart. I told the story before when I went to the all-Black elementary school. If you were smart, like you literally, had it was like damn Spider-Man comic. You get bullied. Why are you so smart? Why are you reading books? Why are you interested in math? It's a negative concept. And then I went to high school, which was a little more integrated. And the high school quarterback had like a 4.0 GPA and was celebrated. He's white because academics wasn't seen as a negative, seen as a positive. You just can't just go out and play. You need to do your homework and write your test. It's the first time I seen it in that light. And we still see it today. From an early age, they try to tell us that we need to tone our stuff down. We shouldn't be confident. LaMelo Ball, now listen, I understand it may sound crazy, but LaMelo Ball said he wanted to be the president of the United States. They laughed at him. They joked. If Cooper Flagg was asked by the Dallas Mavericks, what do you see yourself doing after basketball? And he said, I want to get into politics, and you never know. Maybe I'll be the president of the United States. No one would laugh. It wouldn't be funny to anybody. But LaMelo Ball said it at 18 years old, and it was a joke. But see, that's not really funny if you think about it. It's not funny at all. It's systematically ingrained into people's head. This is how you're supposed to be. And they want to put Shedeur Sanders in a box. They want him to act the way they want him to act, do the things they want him to do. And he's not doing it because he doesn't have to. His life is not so tied up in sports that he has to do whatever you want him to do. That's a bit freeing for him. So that's why, my Caucasian brethren, as Black people, we root for people like that because we've experienced it. I've experienced it in media for years. I've told the story before of how I got my first credential to the NBA Finals. This is many, many, many years ago, right? And I was pulled off to the side. And the wording that was used, that I'm paraphrasing, is you might only get one shot at this. So don't mess up. And in addition to that was, if you mess up, you're not just messing up for yourself. You may dictate what happens to people like you in the future. And this was after being turned. What happened was I had been turned down a bunch of times. The person that was in charge, I'm not going to use any names or anything, whatever, the original person in charge was not a fan. And, a lot of times it's just one person that has that power to say yay or nay. The second person that was in charge actually was a fan. Actually, it was more open to giving people. Don't forget, this is the time where if you was online and you had an online website, they did not credential you for major events. Unless it was, ESPN.com or Bleacher Report. It had to be mainstream. It wasn't like the independent bloggers and the podcasters like they do now. And you see a lot of them now locally. They didn't do that back then. So I was the first. Literally the first. In the NFL, the first one they gave a credential to, that was an independent website, to the actual game. I was the first. NBA Finals, I was the first independent. I was the first. And I was told that I basically I was like Eminem. I had one shot. And I'm not saying that the person told me that in like because they were like that. I think they were just letting me know what the conversations were having behind the scenes. It wasn't a conversation like, I'm talking down to you. It's a conversation like I'm giving you a heads up. Wear a suit, be professional. You ask your question, think about what you're asking. You're not going to get another, you might not get another shot at this. This may be your one and only shot at this. And on top of that, which added the pressure to it, was we got a long list of people behind you that are interested in doing what you do. You have to set the example for them. That was a lot of pressure on a young me that really hadn't been in that environment, before. And it was the reason I mentioned it is because there was others. Oh my God. There was others. There were others that were there that say were with bigger outlets. And they were terrible. They were awful. They were not good. The questions weren't good. The athletes, the players didn't like them. And there was no repercussions. There was no worry that they wouldn't be asked back. There was no worry about being denied going forward. There was no pushback from that. And the only difference was they look different than me. Even today, now that I'm an OG, triple OG, I still, and maybe I don't have to, maybe things are different. I don't know. I still tell the young kids if they want to tell, they're young kids. I don't like to get in their business and tell them what to do. They're accomplished, they're doing their thing and everything. But if they ask, I'm like, you maybe not want to come in, slides or flip flops like some of the white boys do to some of the press conferences. You may be judged differently by your attire. If you got your hat on, you got your, whatever. Shouldn't be like that, but that's the way it is at times. And it's so odd because you can have Johnny Manziel just doing whatever. Nobody cares. You got the kid from Vanderbilt. His mom is twerking over the railing. Nobody cares. But a kid, just puts up his wrist, puts up his watch, and all of a sudden, it's a national security issue. It's a national security issue. Shedeur Sanders would be, if you look at the quarterbacks that are coming out of, he would probably be the top guy in the 2026 draft. Do you really think Shedeur Sanders is not better than Fernando Mendoza? You really don't think Shedeur Sanders couldn't have went to Indiana, Oregon, LSU, all of these, Clemson, and not been Ohio State and not had a success? Come on now. We gotta just tell the truth. And so you get the overreactions, you get the underreactions, you get the proper reactions. I thought he played solid. I think he showed what he's good at. He's just better at pushing the ball downfield. He's better at that than Dylan Gabriel. And that's not a knock on Dylan Gabriel. That's just the way Dylan Gabriel played in college. That's the way they play at Oregon. That's the way that he was trained. He just doesn't have that type of mentality. He doesn't have that type of arm. I mean, you can kind of get away with that if you're like Bodacious Knicks, but Bodacious has, more athletic skills than Dylan Gabriel. So it's not, what I'm trying to explain to people, it's a perception issue of Shedeur Sanders is not doing anything unusual, saying that he wants to be the man, says that he believes in himself, says that he won't fail. Same stuff Baker Mayfield says all the time. It's the same stuff all quarterbacks say. What quarterback doesn't believe in themselves? What quarterback you want to get up there and say, well, we'll see what happens? You got to have this belief. And certain things you can't teach. White, black, Mexican, Asian, whatever. Some things you either have it or you don't, right? You either have it or you don't. And I think people like some people can manufacture it sometimes. They're good at it. They're good at manufacturing clout and attention and putting all this stuff, on themselves. But certain individuals, they just like have it, and they don't have to do anything to have it. Caitlin Clark doesn't really like to do the media and all. She just has it. Just like Angel Reese is a different way, but she got it. You know what I'm saying? Certain people, like even if you go back with Johnny Manziel, he just had it. Shohei, they got it. Sometimes it's talent based. Sometimes it's like insanity. It just happens. When you have certain motion, it's just you generate on a different level. You vibrate on a different vibe. You just got it. I was watching the Eddie Murphy documentary on Netflix. I love Eddie Murphy. I'm apologetically Eddie Murphy. Unapologetically Eddie Murphy stan. I think Eddie Murphy Raw, which was done in 1987. I honestly believe this because it's true. Eddie Murphy Raw is probably the greatest stand-up ever. But beyond that, he just hits everything that you can actually apply in real life, like today. And we're talking 87, what is it, 25? That's too much math. That was 40 years ago. But when he talks about, he talks about Bill Cosby, you know what I'm saying? He talks about, love and half and all these other stuff. Even if you go back to Delirious, when he talks about his family and things like that, you can apply those things to real life. See, he's just somebody that, he in the documentary said at 13, he's like, I'm going to be famous. Like you have it. And you see the other comedians talk about it. He just has it. Where it comes from, how you get it, I don't know. If you got it, you got it. If you do have it, you got it. Some people you look at, and you're like, they got it. Rihanna, you look at her, she got it. I don't know what it is, but she got it. Some people build up to it, like say Tom Brady, right? I remember watching LeBron in high school. I think I was a freshman in college, and he was a junior in high school, something around that time. And but this guy, he just got it. You just saw it. When you see it, you know it. It's kind of like falling in love at first sight. It's like when you see it, I knew right from the jump. Now, I don't know if Shedeur is going to be a great quarterback. I don't know if he's going to be a good quarterback. I don't know if the Browns is the right situation for him. I don't know if the situation is going to, unfortunately, not let us know what his true potential can be. But what I do know is he got it. And when you have somebody that has it, you need to try to cultivate that. Because there are certain vibrations, there's certain energy, there's just certain things that when you have it, you don't want to let it go. You want to work on it. There's just something to him. And maybe sometimes it's just the perfect storm, and there's just sometimes you just have it. You just have it. Happy for little prime time, says Chris. Sorry, with Raiders fans. The last time the Raiders was good is when the old boy tanked the Super Bowl for him. And we're the one guy went on a coke binge, and the coach allegedly was upset and something and gave the game plan to Gruden. That was the last time the Raiders were good. They went through a whole decade of Derek Carr. My goodness. Derek Carr made like $200 million, 0 playoff wins. Geno Smith's flipping off the fans. It's not looking good. I'm a Raiders fan, but in this, the only way I can explain it is the same way like I was a 90s Cowboys fan. It's like I'm not a Cowboys fan today, but my nostalgia for the old Cowboys still remains. So when I was a kid, I used to watch those, back then we only had like 5 channels. But ESPN used to show all the NFL films, the John Crescenda and stuff. And like, I was the only child. I'll be watching that stuff at 11 p.m., midnight, and everything in the summer. The autumn wind is a Raider. So I learned John Madden was a coach. When I was a kid, I just thought John Madden was the football game guy and the announcer. I think I was probably like, I don't know, 13, 14. Well, hey, man, this guy coached the Raiders and won a Super Bowl. But yeah, my guy was Lester Hayes with the Jerry curl and the stickle. Yeah, Lester Hayes. One of my earliest memories as a kid is very vague, but I clearly remember watching the 83 Super Bowl where Marcus Allen does the run where he goes that way and he turns around and does the other way. I remember watching when Bo Jackson messed up his hip. They're like, oh, he'll be all right. And he was never played again. It was a hip drop tackle back then in the 90s. I remember that. Man, it was I do feel bad for Raiders fans. I want to get to this Pablo Torre versus the world, or more specifically, Jordan Hudson, but just in general. I like what he's doing. I do. I like what he's doing because investigative sports journalists it's kind of went by the wayside. You just don't see it as much. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, somebody would have already cracked that Kawhi Leonard stuff. They would have cracked a lot of this other stuff. So nobody really does it anymore. So like life, if you find a lane, run through that MNFer. I don't know Pablo personally. When he was with Dan Laboratory, I know they used to make fun of my headlines from time to time. I do think Jordan Hudson has a crush on him. I honestly do. I think they're flirting. I think they're flirting. I still don't understand the whole Bill Belichick thing, but she says she's gonna sue him, but there's nothing to sue. See, one thing, journalists are pretty protected against like defamation and libel and all that stuff. You have to prove that someone knew that they were just lying and they did it just to harm you, right? So that's a hard burden of proof, because if somebody is just like, listen, I have a source at North Carolina, they told me X, Y, and Z, I believed them. At that point, you're really pretty much in the clear. You only really get in trouble when you say certain things with no backing to them. Like say, oh, such and such has an STD, they have AIDS or whatever. Oh, they were with a trans, gender last night. They just saying it just out the blue, But most journalists, most people that have an inkling, they know how to get around that. Literally throwing an allegedly in there will protect you against like 95% of lawsuits. I said allegedly. I just said this is what I heard. I didn't say it was true. I said it was alleged. I said it was a rumor. It's a wide vast of protection. A lot of people wanted to do the lawsuit so Pablo would have access to discovery and find out, what's really going on behind the scenes there. Also, it's so funny. I was just talking about this with the journalists and the NBA finals and all that stuff. The one thing that they don't play about is you showing your credential online. The reason why is that a long time ago, when people would just wear their credentials, the people would clone them, basically, make fakes and get into sport events, which could also be a security risk, obviously. So they say don't do that, or they will literally. I've seen them ban people on the spot. Like, hey, we just saw what you just put on Instagram. You got to go on the spot. I've seen that. And they normally do not, the higher up, I mean, they don't do it to Stephen A. Smith, But I've seen her do it to people high up the chain. So she just posted her credential online, all access with a band necklace and all that. You can't do that. Kind of stallions are going to show up on the North Carolina sidelines next week, probably. Yeah, we get investigative journalism is still important. It is, You have to pull the curtain behind what's going on. If I was Pablo, I still make sure I have a little security around though, because you're messing with billionaires, not millionaires, billionaires. You don't want to go, show up missing. I've watched enough unsolved mysteries about reporters. I mean, I don't know if it's as prevalent today, but in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, if a reporter got a little bit too close to a story, it wasn't unusual to find them in a bathtub with some electrical cords and some cuts on their wrist. I'm just saying. I may just be watched too many forensic files and stuff. What was the octopus murders on the octopus something on Netflix with a guy? They found him in the hotel and his little cuts were a little suspect. He's found about a deep government organization that was putting hits on journalists and stuff. Gotta be careful out there. You gotta be careful out there. Ja Morant. Ja Wick. I don't, he's, boy, I don't know. I tell you, I tell you, he got in the Klay Thompson face and called him a bum. And granted, Clay's not, playing his best, these days, but it's just the audacity, of it all. No respect for for the people that help put you on and made sure you got these 100, $200 million contracts. We seen this before in sports. A guy looks like he's going to be the guy, but for reasons that have nothing to do with the sport, they end up flaming out pretty quickly. I don't see, unless something seriously changes, I don't really see much of a future for Ja Morant. What I see is a guy that's going to be bouncing around teams for the next 5 or 10 years and never finding a real fit. Always going to be hurt, some suspended from time to time. Yeah, I don't see his type of game translating to a 10, 15 year career. His attitude is not proper. Um, yeah, once again, you always have to watch out when it feels like someone is trying to be something that they're not. Remember when we talked about authenticity? Like if you have it, you have it. If you fake it, after a while, people will start seeing through it. You know, if you start faking it, if you start being somebody that you're really not, people start to see through it after a while. And I think for a while it was hot, whatever John was doing. But after a while, people, this I can see through it. This is not right. Why are we? What's up with the guns? Why is your dad dressed like Usher? What's happening? Why aren't we just playing ball? Why are you doing this? It's crazy. I mean, he had like a meeting with Adam Silver. Adam Silver had toned it down, and then a week later he's in the car. They just it's like, what's going on up there? What's in the mind? Is it just hollow up there? What's happening? And it's sad because ton of potential. Small guards that are super athletic really click with the fan base because they see them. It's hard to relate to Shaq. You know what I mean? It's hard to relate to Wemby. Nobody can be Jokic or LeBron. Even, and I think that's the reason why Steph is so popular because he's relatable. Even though he's like 6'4", he's not seen as a giant and everything. So small guards always get a lot of love. They are like fearless. You see that from you go back to Allen Iverson, Isaiah Thomas. They get even Jalen Brunson. So he had that base ready for him. And he just blew it. Yeah, he blew it. And now he's blowing it. And it's sad. It's really, really sad. I hope it's a change. Everybody can change. Everybody can make a turn, a twist, so things will be better. But I hope it changes for him before it's too late. Because what's going to happen is he's going to be 40 years old, 45 years old. Yeah, he still have a lot of money, thankfully. Generational wealth. Grateful for that. He did something that a lot of people can't say they did. He played at a high level in the NBA. That's a beautiful thing. But he's going to have some regrets because he could have been a lot bigger than what it looks like that he's going to be. And when you're young, sometimes it's hard to get that through your head. It's only when you're older you're like, oh shit, I should have did this, I should have did that. So hopefully somebody is trying to get to him, but it doesn't seem like nothing is getting through. It is rivalry week. The game, Ohio State, Michigan, is this week. We've been pretty much from the time that Ohio State won the national championship last year, the anticipation of what was going to happen this year after what happened last year. I don't think I wasn't around when the rivalry was, the Bo Schemblatt, Beckler, Woody Hayes and everything. But I don't think there has been a time, at least in my life, and I've been a part of this rivalry now for 20, 27 years now, 25, 26 years now. There's never been a time where I felt like this seems like its peak. And maybe because of social media, maybe because Ohio State and Michigan fans can now interact on a different level. But I feel like we're at the peak, I guess, of the new age of the rivalry. Mainly because Michigan finally started winning. But of course, Michigan started winning when they was cheating. So there's a lot of different aspects to it that is gone into it. They beat us fair and square last year, straight up. There's no excuses for that L. We were 20-point favorite. They were without a couple of their key guys. Their quarterback was maybe the worst quarterback in college football last year. We just blew it. Shit happens. You gotta take that one on the chin. Yeah, they cheated the other 3 times, but that one you gotta take on the chin. So now, now everybody's on the up and up. Nobody's out there cheating, allegedly. It's just mano going into their house. They've come to our house the last couple of times, took us out. So going to our house, it's kind of a new set of players. They're the old guard are all in the NFL. Now it's Julian and Jeremiah and Caleb. There's some holdovers, but it's a lot of young guys. Bo, Isaiah West, Mike Graham, Quincy Porter. We have to see about Cornell and them playing and everything, but they have a chance to rewrite the history books. They have a unique opportunity right now because they beat Michigan and they beat Indiana. And then they win those 3 games in the playoffs and go 16-0. There will be discussions of they're the greatest college football team of all time. Even if you don't think that they're the greatest college football team of all time, the path that they would have gotten to undefeated will be talked about. It will be the first undefeated team in this new era of a 12-game playoff, and they'll be the first team ever to have 16 wins in the season. So everything is in front of the Ohio State University. I'm very excited. I got a special live for you guys on Wednesday. Something I really, really want to talk to you guys about that I think, I hope, it's going to give you some perspective, not just on the rivalry, but also on life. That's why when you get old, you start trying to teach people stuff like that instead of just screaming at the microphone all the time. You guys have a blessed Monday. Hopefully you get some days off of work as we get closer here to Thanksgiving. This BSO Live with your boy, the Headline King, Robert Littal.